Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Punch Kick Choke Chat. This is the last night where we won't have Sean until the next night that he gets a gig and has to go be a professional actor for a while. But
Sean.
stupid Sean. But he will be back. And listen, I'm really happy for the guy. He's living his best life. Like he's so happy to be on. It looks like they're going to give him a season 3. There's a rumor that he might get a season 3. So um, if you're joining in tonight on Zoom or YouTube or wherever it is you're listening, please consider giving us a like and a follow. And then now we're streaming to YouTube. And tonight I'm here with my 2 instructors, Hachi Gary Legacy and Sister Nicholas Suino. And we've done lots of cool stuff together. But the one thing I want to say in the way of introduction tonight about the 2 of them is it was really cool that after probably 15 years, the 3 of us were at JMAC together and we did EIDO together for like an hour. The 3 of us did EIDO, nobody else in the room. And then after that, Sense of Legacy taught a really kick-ass karate class for the JMAC students who are getting better and better. Every time we go, their karate's getting better and better. And then since Suino was nice enough at the end of that to hijack his judo class and let it be just all rolling. So I got to spend the whole evening rolling and fighting on the ground. Just an outstanding day. And it couldn't have been that outstanding without the 2 of you there, the 3 of us together. Yeah. So since Suino, you got anything you want to say tonight in way of introductions or thoughts?
Well, let me just get on that topic, Hanshi. That was so great to have you down again. I have a bunch of really good pictures from that. They just turned out great, and I know you asked for a couple of them, and I have more. I've been so busy, I haven't even hardly posted them on social media. But I mean, not that the old days were better than the new days, but it harkened back to some of the early days when we used to train together up in St. Thomas, and whatever, and that whole weekend was great. I was in a great mood for 3 or 4 days after that. So I want to do it again. Let's start planning. Come on down, Hunter. You're always welcome. And our guys just absolutely love when you come down to teach. So let's make it happen.
How about you, Sensei? You don't do the introductions too often. Anything you want to say about that night or?
Well, I just said it when we weren't airing. Congratulations on his 7th Dan, his red and white belt. Feels a bit, I think, shy about having a belt, but it's like that all the time when you get your next belt. You feel a little, I don't know if the word is shy. It's that sort of feeling.
Yeah, because nothing's really changed other than the color of your belt. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Um, on that note, we're going to crack that topic open, but because this is a host chat, I want to mention to everybody who's on here, we really would like it if you had a question and you are willing to jump on the screen, ask us the question. We can get into it with you. And yeah, so Stavros so lighted up. He's hosting tonight down in the chat bar, but just send us a question if you want to be on this show, because we definitely want you on here. So, and since Legacy broke it open, and that's kind of where I'd like to go first. So, since Suino, congratulations, 7th Dan.
Thank you.
And that comes with a belt change for you.
Yeah. As you alluded to, it's a red and white belt, and I guess technically, right, in judo you wear a red and white belt at 6th, but I managed to escape that for a while. Somebody asked me about, how long it takes to get rank at this level. It's funny because I don't really think about rank much, and the board of the SMAA, just even without consulting with me, sent me a letter and said, we've looked at, your publications, your number of students, how you support the art, and we've decided you get a 7th Dan. And I went, that's weird. Let me go back and look. And I got my 5th Dan 25 years ago. So an average of 12 and a half years between belt ranks. So been at this game a while. And I was really happy to get it. As I mentioned to you guys right before the call started, when I had the ceremony at JMAC, we had everybody together for it. I really was happy about it for the reason that it's a symbol of everything that I'm doing now to give back. The family I've built, martial artists at JMAC, what I've done in judo, been able to help give back to the art and the people. That's what it's all about. And I'm really delighted that for that reason, right, that I can lead this group of people. We have our own families, we have our friends, and then we have our martial arts family. And we're super blessed to have those people in our lives.
I heard a rumor maybe from you, since you know that you actually tried to refuse the seventh Dan, and they basically said you're becoming a roadblock for other people moving up in the association, so you have to move on.
I don't know why, completely independently. I was thinking about this line from Blade Runner. The old police captain recruits Harrison Ford to shoot these replicants in Blade Runner, right? And Harrison Ford's been shooting these replicants his whole life. He's sick of it because they're like human beings. They're basically human beings, and he tries to quit. And he says, "No, I'm not doing it." And the captain says, "Listen, you're either a cop or you're little people." And and Harrison Ford goes, "No choice, huh?" And the captain goes, "No choice, pal." And he hands him a drink. And then Harrison Ford has to go off and start killing people again. So so I got no choice, and I didn't get the drink either until March 15th. Then I get one.
Right.
Yeah.
Since Lacey, when we do the Matsumura challenge, which belt do you want Sensei Suino to bring to help with refereeing?
Yet.
Oh, the red one, of course. Yeah, red and
Yeah,
white.
yeah.
Oh, Hachi. Well, there you go. If you ordered me to do it, then I must do so. And I will.
The pictures are going to be more uniform now. Let's say that they'll be more
Mhm.
uniform when the three of us do pictures.
I'm gonna have to hire somebody to wear that thing out a little bit because it's still crunchy and new.
So let's talk about that so we can go around the horn a little bit on it. You know, and you've had the most belt changes since Lacey, so we'll start with you. But you know, harking back to when you before the call, you were talking about, you know, your first day as a black belt on the floor.
Yeah.
And I remember your other ranks. Like I was there when you got your sixth down and got your red and white belt. And I was there when you got your 10th, 9th and 10th and got your red belt. But maybe you want to articulate a little bit about the feelings of the first day being a black belt, the first days being a red and white belt, the first days being a red belt.
Well, and I was never, as you know, I never ever asked one. I just trained and somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and that happened. Um, Black belt, especially to me, it's probably the biggest step that you take. You know, is uh, essentially just call me up, give me the belt, and then it was the next class when I had to enter. It was like 45, 60 people on the floor, and I had my belt on. I was standing out in the hall, and I was nervous about it. I think the word is shy. You know what I mean? Like you never feel that you're really worthy of it, or you know, am I going to do something stupid? So I finally got the nerve up and stepped out on the floor and bowed, and somebody yelled "Kuski," and you know they bowed me in. I went in. I walked about halfway around and then cut back through the middle of the class, and then I was a bit nervous there, but you get over that quickly. As soon as karate starts, that all leaves. It's you know, like that. And like you said, Sixuino, I spent as a I was a fourth dan for 15 years because for a while there I was hunting down a sensei like Anthony Sandoval, Sensei Sandoval. And then after 50, he was the guy because I never had it. Like I said, I never had a sensei for I don't know how many years I was hunting him down. And then we'll just skip all the others. The red belt was nice because I was used to being a sensei. But the day that he gave me a 10th dan, I didn't know which way to turn. I had no idea. But really understanding what a ninth and a 10th dan are, they're not something that you really have to work for. It's something that you've become and you get appointed. It's It's not somebody, okay, you have to go out and do this. You have to do these cutters. You're appointed, like Sensei Sandoval appointed me to head Matsumoto Worldwide Crane in Canada. So I understand that. So I accept that a lot more than I did when I first became a black belt.
Thanks, Sensei. How about you, Sensei? We've never actually talked about that. Your first day as a black belt, when you got graded, like, and how did you feel when you were putting the red and white belt on, standing in JMAC in front of everybody? How was that?
I mean, that was, like I said, that was great. You're in your family. Everybody's super thrilled about it. The people were so nice. And in the moment, as part of the formalities, it was no big deal. That I didn't mind. Wearing it is uncomfortable. I'm gonna have to learn to love it. Um, my first black belt, I barely remember. My first black belt was in Shorin-ryu Karate. Um, 1985, I
Is that
think.
Scott Sensei? Is that
From Carl Scott. And it was a crazy year because those guys, um that group of guys they were bangers. They I don't know how good we all were. Probably not very good, but we would put basically on kendo armor and thin bag gloves and fight. And it was all, it was painful. It was like putting yourself inside a cardboard box and having people hit you with baseball bats. It was so painful. Um, uh, we were bangers, and then a bunch of us got our showdowns. But the really interesting thing was a week before, I went out and spent a week what the hell, in Colorado, where the Olympic Training Center is. Can't remember the Colorado Springs. I spent a week in Colorado Springs doing 3-a-days in judo, training my ass off as tired as I could be. And even despite the 3-a-days, I would still go out in the park and practice my karate because I knew as soon as I came back a week later, I had I had to test for my Shodan. So it's different when you're 25. I'll tell you that much for free. Rocked it out, was sore as hell, got my Shodan. I'm sure we drank a lot. Uh, but I was part of a big group. And so in one way, it was a little bit more natural, right? It wasn't just me getting my Shodan. It was like 8 guys, I think. If I don't even remember for sure what the number was, maybe 5 guys, but we had all trained together for a year and a half, 2 years to that level, got the Shodan and went on with ourselves. So, I don't remember feeling so shy about that, but I do remember feeling super shy when people started calling me sensei, right? The first 3 to 6 months, it takes a while, like a new suit. It takes a while for that to start setting on you comfortably. Yep.
I was like 23 when Sensei Legacy graded me to my Shodan, and it was an extremely difficult grading where my whole life was different the second after it was done. And interestingly, the grading part of it, so you go, you do all your basics, you do kata. We had to do some self-defenses, had to demonstrate some bunkai. So now you're like an hour-ish into it. You're tired. They're asking you questions like, what's your postal code? You can't remember anything. Like, you can't really think, like, blood's rushing through your head. And then you start fighting. And I had to fight 22 people in a row. You made me fight. And there's no equipment either. You're wearing a mouthpiece. So I know about that. Like, you're wearing a mouthpiece. That's what you're wearing. Um, and at first you're like, okay, I'm doing okay. I do good for like, 3 or 4 fights. And then you're kind of neutral for like 2 or 3 or 4 fights. And then you're just like hammered for like 12 or 13 fights. And he's like, I will not stop the fight until you land 1 or 2 solid techniques that would end a fight. So then you got to muster it up to actually end that fight. And then when it's done, he's like, okay, you can leave. And I remember we were at the YWCA and I went out the back and I leaned over the railing and like everything that could come out of a human's face coming out of my face, like some vomit, some spit, some snot, some blood, like tears, they were all coming out. And then here's the kind of weird thing is you come back in and they say, Sensei says, okay, you pass. And then you got to wait 2 weeks to get your black belt. You just got to go back to class with your brown belt on, all beat up and smashed, right? And wait a couple weeks to get your black belt, which actually now I think is probably a good thing because you do get to kind of like internalize it a little bit for a couple weeks before they wrap it around your waist. Um, but it was a weird feeling the first time I walked in the dojo and everybody went Koiski. Like, and there were people like Sense of Legacy, other people on the floor, and everybody stopped and bowed to you. It was a bit, just was a bit weird, like a surreal feeling. But the other surreal feeling was after I was red and white belt. As you said, since in the dojo it was okay, right? Since the graded you your red and white belt, I got it at the Christmas dinner. He put it on me with my suit on, so I took my suit jacket off. I've never tied my own belt on the first time ever. Since he's always tied them on. And so, I've got my tie and get that, and everybody claps for it. And it's great. And then you take it off and go to the dojo. And I was pretty excited to actually put it on and go in then. But the first time I went to a public event with it, which was the Matsumore Challenge, and I remember like looking down in my gym bag at that red and white belt and thinking about all the people I was going to have to step out onto the floor and put it on. And, like people that are senior to me that don't wear them, like Sensei Copeland, Sensei de Guzman, like these people. And I'm like, shit, like just wrap it around your waist and go take your lumps, get out there and do it. And then now like you said, I don't even think about it. Like I tease the kids in the club right now and I tell them that my red and white belt is like 5 times older than most of them. Like just my red and white belt has been in karate longer than most of them.
I love that period of 2 weeks where you're a brown belt and you passed. Maybe we should get headbands that say not a black belt.
Yeah. Well, that's your chance to really screw it up, right? Because it would really suck to have to go through that grading and then
Oh God, I
mess
can't
something
imagine
up
that.
in that 2 week period and get told, how about 3 months from now you can test again?
Right? No, thank you.
On that note, what was for you since Legacy? I think I know some. What were you had a couple of really hard. I think your fifth Dan test was really hard. Your fifth degree black belt test was really hard. And I think your Shodan test was pretty hard. Um, maybe describe those tests and what it was like after. Like, how were you after them?
Oh, after them,
Yeah.
um, I don't know. I guess I was all right. I was banged up a little bit, especially for the fifth Dan one. The Shodan one sent Benny Allen grading me to a Shodan, and in those days we didn't have the type of phones that you have now. You had to have a camera, and I didn't know that it was going to happen at that particular time, and we were training outside. And he made us do some pretty tough stuff. I fought a couple of guys, did a lot of katas. The thing is with him is he never really put us through a test per se. He already knew through your regular day classes, and he never, like I said, he never gave anybody your certificate. He just took your belt off you and give you yours. That was it.
But you got a certificate from him.
Yeah, yeah. I I asked him if he could give me something, because nobody else in the world has something. And he gave me a 3-ring binder lined paper that stated that he had graded me on that day. And then, and I treasure this. Nobody else has one, right? And he had graded me. This was actually a fourth Dan, on a fourth Dan one. And then he put PS underneath the little note that he wrote and said, an instructor's certificate as well, or something to those words. So, but now that you look around, nobody can deny. And also, I had my picture taken with him during my Shodan grading, and a lot of people are left without that treasure.
That treasure hangs in the Kitchener dojo.
It does it? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it does. Wow.
How about when you graded in front of Resta?
Uh, yeah, well, that
Hachi
was pretty.
He said the fighting was pretty extreme for that fifth dan.
Yeah,
That's what
well, what I was in Ron Yamanaka's club, and Caesar Bukowski, the famous Caesar Bukowski, was the referee.
Wow.
So I did all my basics up and down and all my katas, and he just sat there, just like poker faced, never. But he brought a bunch of his students, and Varesta Sensei was from Iran, and he was like a ninth dan. I was going for my fifth dan, and there really wasn't anybody around at that time that could grade anybody to a fifth dan. So he brought all of his guys, and we got going, and things got to be rough. So I had to start knocking people out. So, if you read my book, you'll read what Caesar Bukowski said about the fights. He said they started. I really had to do pure self-defense. They came after me, and that's the way I think it should have been. You don't want to just waltz into somewhere. You should walk in a bit uh, marked up from the experience. So that was pretty real.
I I heard from people who watched that Varesta Sensei didn't smile during the entire grading until you broke his son's nose in a fight, and then he stood up and smiled. That's,
Yeah, and a funny sidebar about 7 or 8 years ago. It was, I walked up. I was in a washroom. I had to go to do my thing, and I'm standing there, and about this great big tall uh, black gentleman, and he turned around and looks at me and goes, "Oh, Hachi Legacy." I goes, oh, "Hi, how are you?" Like it's a weird place to meet somebody. He says, "You probably don't recognize me." I said, "I'm sorry, I can't remember right now." He said, "I was one of the guys at your fifth dan grading." He actually said victims, but
That's a nice tribute to you.
yeah.
I can say that that happened because I was with you when he said
Were
it.
you? I
Yeah,
couldn't
we
remember.
were there at a karate tour. We were going to a karate tournament. Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
So, yeah. How about you, Setsuna? What were some of your tougher gradings? So you talked about your Shodan grading, getting beat up. How about in judo? Do you remember? Or was the training tougher or the gradings tougher?
Uh, uh, in the old days at the Asian Martial Arts Studio, they believed I don't know what it's like now, but in the old days, they believed in long, hard gradings. My Nidan grading in karate in Shorin-ryu was tough. It was just me and this guy, Mark Moeller, who's a friend of mine to this day. He owns a dojo, a pretty big club down in Atlanta. And Mark, I'm 5'6" with hiking boots on, and I think Mark is 6'1" or 6'2". Um, and so we look very different doing kata and all that kind of stuff. I think it was a 3-hour test in the summer, uh, something like that. Hot summer, 80 degrees outside, 3 hours of just train, 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 train. And then we to finish, we had to put on that kendo gear I talked about, and we had to spar. And we didn't spar much outside of those special occasions with that gear on. And I was just not ready for his. I've mentioned this before on this show. I was knocked out on my feet. I never fell over, or lost consciousness, but I was hearing the angels. I walked right, because his reach was so much longer than mine. I walked right into a straight punch from him, or straight reverse punch from him. Hit me right in the cage of that kendo helmet, right? And I was just walking around. I didn't really hear anything. I could see stuff going on. I was fighting, but I couldn't feel it. So that was kind of interesting. But we passed, and it was just a long, hard test, and it was good. We got our knee downs, and it was all good. Um, Similarly long, I think a Shodan test in judo, and that was with my buddy who's the late Bob Hodder, who was just a wonderful, wonderful human being. When Bob was 16 years old, he was competing as a brown belt in a judo tournament and got his neck broken, and he spent the next year and a half in a halo. Um, and so he would not fight hard. He just couldn't. I mean, like if he had gotten thrown again, if he got spiked on his head again, he would have been paralyzed. So we trained in judo for a long time together, and we tested for a Shodan together. And one of the highlights of that is that the actor Jeff Daniels was there because Bob was his stepfather. So that was kind of cool. We had this famous actor in the room and this little tiny judo test with 30 people watching, and two guys testing. Um, uh, so it was a long, hard, hot day and a tough test. But the thing I remember most about it is the fact that I kept glancing over to see Jeff Daniels in the audience because he was already pretty famous by then.
Mine, when I was done, the big difference was after fighting so many people and doing so much stuff, and then after, like, sense of legacy, they're like, you're up, you're fighting that guy, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna fight one person here for like maybe 3 or 7 minutes. Okay. Like it just changed your whole like demeanor when it came to those things. Because you knew you could survive it, I guess. Like even if the person was better than you, you're like, I could probably live through this next 7 minutes. I'm gonna be okay for the next 7 minutes. But listen, Sensei Panekia has sent the question in and is willing to come on screen. So we are going to turn his camera on, Stavros, and let him ask his question. Here he comes.
There he is.
Sensei.
Good evening and congratulations again to you, Nick.
Thank you so much, Sensei.
My question is the use of the word us. I've never heard it used in judo, but I hear a lot of the karate people do it, and I've read a couple of different things where it may have started with Koikishinkai group, and recently there was a picture of from Demura Sensei saying, "Never use us, only hi." And I know at least when I've been to JMAC, you would hear hi a lot, but I never heard us. And I don't know if you have an opinion on that. I've heard some Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys using it. It's like, well, if this is a Japanese word, why are you Brazilian guys using it? And that kind of thing.
So who do you want to address that first, Sensei Panekia?
Well, we might as well start with Hanshi Legacy, seniority.
Well, from what I understand, the word "us" was used it's a Japanese word, and during their invasion of Okinawa, they sort of made the Okinawans use that, and it was a bit demeaning to them. So Okinawan martial artists don't use that word. It's like calling, I guess, and I pardon to the people, if you say Eskimo to Eskimos, they don't like that. It's sort of like that.
Thank you. Either one next there, Nick.
I'll jump in. It's true. I don't know that I heard it very much at all in 4 years of training in Japan in a bunch of different dojos. Definitely Kyokushinkai guys use it. It's a little more, it's considered a rougher word. Some of the Shotokan dojos I went to used it, but by and large, the places that were Japanese and definitely the judo guys, the sort of elevated people would say hi, and if you go to a Kyudo dojo, they don't even say hi in their belly. The hi has to come up from here. Hi, right? It has to be a lot more cultured. So yeah, I've read a bunch of articles on it. People have suggested that it means this or means that. I don't really know it firsthand, but I think I agree with the sentiment of your question, which is it's almost never heard in mainstream dojos, at least in, judo, Japanese jiu-jitsu, kyudo, iaido, that kind of thing.
So I can't give you much history on it, Sensei, other than my own personal experiences with it, which should be, I believe Sensei was when Sensei Sandoval came along. He was the one who said to us, gave us that history of you shouldn't use the word us, you should be using the word height. And just because that whole Okinawan Japanese thing. I will say that the Kyokushinkai, we learned from Sensei Adams on this show, Sensei Bill Adams, that he once had an interview with them. And he said when Masoyama was coming out of the dojo, all his black belts would like run out of the dojo and line the street to where the car was going to be. And as he would come out, they would all be going, oos, oos, bowing and like chanting that. So definitely it's a Kyokushinkai thing. Even GSP, who's like one of my idols in combat sports, he comes in with his karate uniform on. He's a Kyokushinkai guy, and he does the Kyokushinkai bow and says "us." So I think it is more a Kyokushinkai thing. But I will say to your point also that at the BJJ gym I train at, they say "us." They'll say that, but it's not in any type of a formal sense. So it's not when you bow or when you. It's almost like. They use it almost like a compliment. Like if you do something really well, they'll be like, "Ooh, Randy, good job." Like it's more like that. It's not. They don't do it when they bow. At least not in my gym. It's like I said, to be more of a compliment. But you're a great historian, Sensei. What is your knowledge on it and your reading about it?
Are you asking me?
Yes, yeah. Turning the
Okay.
question around on you.
Well, today on Facebook, in one of the judo things, the sites, they were saying it may have come from the word "ohayou gozaimasu" and shortening it to "us" or whatever. But other places that I've read, and I don't remember the exact Japanese term now, that would be short for saying persevere or endure. But then I also was reading where it's not something a lower rank should say to an upper rank, and it's not something that a gentleman should say to a lady. And like I said, Fumio Demura, if he actually said this, there's a poster. He says, "Don't use that. That's a gangster thing," and use the word height. And I thought that was very interesting. But I'm just amazed at how many different arts are using this, but you don't use any other terms in Japanese. And all of a sudden you're throwing this term out there. And, is it a cliquish thing? I don't know. But like I said, we've never used it in judo. You'd say height.
Yep, yep. One of the Sensei Pinecchio, one of the articles I read that you probably have seen over the years, that Japanese term is oshi shinobu, right? Which kind of means, persevere. It's like, gut it out, good job. And that kind of fits with the Kyokushinkai mentality. So maybe that's got some truth to it.
And have a little bit of a military influence, because they really got into it. And from my understanding, and the gentlemen have been to Okinawa, they tended to be more a relaxed group. And then things got to Japan and the military wanted to get into that. And now all of a sudden, okay, it's going to be military commands. So.
And at one point, I'm going to muff this up. So, I mean, if we have historians watching or feel free to set us straight. But I remember a conversation about the Toyama-ryu guys, right? So they were, they were the sword guys, and they were pretty closely tied with some of the more militaristic branches of martial arts. And I remember, and I could remember this wrong, some of those branches used the word os as well, but I'm happy to be corrected on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, if it's cliquish or it's to this specific group, and I'm guessing we may have used the word kuchiwaza,
Mhm.
which is all talk, but in some people's translation, that may not be something to say to a lady.
Yes, sir. Don't do it. Hey, Sensei Paneki, before we let you go, I want to let you know that uh, uh, Sato Tadayuki Sensei, who's been to JMAC before, is coming in March, and I want to make sure you know about it. So that if you want to drop in, I know you like to come in and observe those things. And if you're around, and you got the time. So why don't you connect with me, and let's just make sure you at least know what the times are, so you can come in if you like.
Okay, well, arigato gozaimasu.
Do itashimashite.
So
Thank
nice
you.
to see you. So nice to see you, Sensei. Thanks for coming on.
All righty.
And I want to say to all the other people on there on the show tonight, he's led the way for you. If you have a question, be brave. Turn your
brave.
camera on and ask the question.
Listen, we've got some great martial artists on this call. We've got Sensei Doug Knispel on this call. We've got superhero Conroy Copeland Sensei on the call. We've got the beautiful Pamela Swino. We've got Sean F.P. We've got Dan J. Hall III. We got Marcus J. Altamar, among others. Christiana Londolt, who posted some beautiful baby pictures today. None of you listening on this call right now have any excuse not to be sending in questions. So I'm judging you right now. I've got one raised eyebrow, and I'm judging you guys for not sending in your questions.
And you don't know Sensei Michael Wright, but you will meet him. He is an Aikido practitioner who's taken up our EIDO program and is doing
Wonderful.
really well.
Can't wait to meet you, sir.
Yes. So while we're waiting for that, since you know you had some place you wanted to go with this, or
Yeah, a little bit. We talked about black belts, and Hanchi has talked a little bit about white crane. It might be something we get into a bit more. So maybe I'm just kind of pushing this topic forward. What's the future of our martial arts, and what role do we have to play in that future?
ooh, that's a good question.
Hanchi, you want to start rolling that rock down the hill?
Well, first I'll quote Cesar Bukowski. I asked him about that because of the way that martial arts got moving across the seas, we'll say. And he said to me, it's up to us now because we're the persons in charge. We have to be courageous and bold enough to take chances. So, with that, when we look back at the guys who are called now modern day masters like Funakoshi, the fathers of modern day, say Miyagi Chojin or Karen Ogashiona and Funakoshi, who were the guys who took karate after, say the time of karate before, after Matsumura and Karate Sakagawa and those guys. So, from what I understand, is Funakoshi left early. His wife was Japanese, and he was half Japanese, and she would get up every morning and face towards Japan and make a deep bow. And so, Matsumura had invented Hakatsuru Dai, the big Hakatsuru kata. He didn't want to teach it to anyone that was not within his family or who was like an Okinawan, because in those times they had a hard. It was hard between the Okinawans and the Japanese. All right, so Funakoshi made his way to Japan and left without knowing the white crane. When you get to a fourth dan, like everybody who's out there who's doing a type of karate, you go up to a fourth dan learning kata, and then there are no more katas. From the fourth to an eighth dan, there's nothing. And then eighth and ninth dan are placements from what you did before. So you did four degrees of black belt, then there are 4 degrees of black belt that nobody's doing. So I learned the white crane from Sensei Sandoval. And it seems to me that its place, its place is in that between a fourth and an eighth dan, so that you learn the softness of karate. Even though karate is a soft art, it just looks hard because of the way it's delivered. But when you get to be my age, there is always also the power of softness. And I think that we have to, as martial artists, we have to look what's going on in between there. That space is left there, it needs to be filled in. And I think that if we don't, we're just going to die away. You have to start feeding information to the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth dans. And I took 30 years out of my martial arts career to learn the white crane. And Randy is also learning the white crane with me. And it fills a lot of the things that you don't understand, and then it's hard for you to get. But first we have to look at that all of karate itself was built from the white crane, from Fang Chin Yang, right? So it didn't come from our karate didn't come from the tiger, didn't come from the dragon, it didn't come from anything else. It came from the white crane. And that is the core of it. And some of the techniques that are hidden in the kata that you can't figure out comes to light when you do the white crane. And I've said that to so many people. And now that I spent 30 years doing it, my sensei Sandoval, said that I should be trying to pass that out there, because if it's lost, if the white crane is lost, a lot is going to be lost in karate. Some of the bunkai, some of the lessons, and the overall understanding of karate, empty hand art. So, what do you think of that?
I have some thoughts on it.
Go.
Let me have it.
So I think you're right. I don't disagree with anything you said, Sensei. I would, in my mind, the thing I get hung up on is the whole rank thing, right? Like, I think if you've done your karate, like, let's say we just remove rank just for this conversation, right? And you've learned 16 or 22 karate katas, whatever it is, Goju-ryu, Shorin-ryu, Ishin-ryu, whatever that is. And you've diligently trained those katas for years and years, 25 years, 30 years. There are elements in Hakutsuru in those katas, but like you said, I really liked when you said they don't really come to light in the same way. They're really like just little flashes. Like, there's a takedown here, it's a little flash. There's an open-handed technique, it's a little flash. And then the white crane, when you start doing Hakutsuru, Hakutsuru Dai doesn't actually have a punch in it. It's a kata that, it has kicks in it, but so it takes some of those elements and really like makes you focus on that particular element of your karate at a much higher level. I see them almost like a yin yang symbol, right? The white crane has karate in it, but it has that spot of karate in it. And karate has white crane in it, but it has that spot of it in it. And I think you should probably start on the karate side. I think it's good for your development to start in the karate side, build your body that way. I mean, even from physical structure, some of the things you do in Hakutsuru with open-handed techniques, if your body is not built the right way from years of karate training, you could hurt yourself. Not only hurt the other person, but you could hurt yourself. So those are some of the thoughts that I have on it. I think it adds new dimensions and elements to your training that aren't really there. Like I said, prominently. And one of the things I I've said and Sensei Legacy said is karate is like a spear or a sword, and White Crane is very much like poison on the end of that, right? So you don't have to do it as hard anymore. Like if you just scrape the person now with the spear, you've injected them with that poison. And these analogies are kind of abstract unless you're doing it, but when you're doing it, it makes a lot of sense. Um, and I would encourage people to at least, you've done it, Sensei Suino, you've done Hakutsuru, so I would encourage people to at least check it out and see. There's lots of people on this call who've done it too. Like Sensei Knispel has started to try and delve into it. He's one who's trying to figure that out. But yeah, what do you have to say about it, Sensei Suino?
Yeah, I have experienced it. I've experienced the softness and the power. I know Daniel J. Holland III has experienced it as well. There's an interesting parallel here to the path of judo, right? When you start judo, you're an athlete. You train, you try to make yourself stronger, you fight harder, you try to get faster. But then, the best technician who ever lived was Mifune Sensei, and his judo was soft and clever and often done in a counter to somebody else. He would use their force against them. And now that you say that, I don't know if I thought about it in these terms before, but it reminds me of the relationship between karate and White Crane and young judo and Mifune's judo, which was really high level. I'm fascinated by this notion. If White Crane shows you some of the secrets that were in your kata, and let's say for the point of argument that Mifune Sensei's level of judo shows you a bunch of stuff that was missing from your youthful judo, and it does. What if these guys had lived to be 150 or 200? If it's 30 years to get good at karate and another 30 years to get good at White Crane, if it's 30 years to get good at judo and another 30 years to get good at Mifune judo, what's that next 30 years like if your body hangs in for it, right? Like, I would like to hang out and see what that magic is, because there might be secrets. And I mean, sure there are, right? I'm sure there are subtleties and secrets that we don't even know yet, which is kind of goes to that whole question we ask on this show. What are you most excited about the next 5 years? I'm excited for the next 50 years to start filling in the spaces like they do in physics, right? You got molecules and atoms, and then you got electrons, and then there's those tiny little particles and energy. Like, what's that like? I realize that's a bit abstract, but I want to see the very best people stay healthy for way longer and see what happens to their martial arts at that point.
I'm glad you didn't take this on a no-touch tangent, Sensei Suino.
Hey, listen, if someone can prove it to us, but so far everybody who's tried to has been a charlatan. So there you go.
Your question though, Sensei Suino, is also you asked some things about, does the world need it, or where will it be? Like, is that we should?
Yeah, let's get back to that. Where should martial arts go for the sake of the world and for the sake of the martial arts?
Who do you want to kick that off?
Why don't you start? I want you to start. You haven't been first on one of these questions yet.
So I think the world needs it now more than ever, because when I say needs it, I mean like classical martial arts. I don't think the world needs more UFC and more sport martial arts. That's enjoyable. Like, don't get me wrong. I enjoy it. I don't want those things to go away, and they have their place. I'm definitely not trash talking that. But today, when will my kid get their belt? Why did I want my kid to get an A because they look good. Everybody gets a trophy. Everybody's the MVP. I really like that in a classical dojo, you form a really close-knit relationship with people around you that's both mental, physical, and on some level spiritual, if you so choose to believe that. And you get the truth. You get the truth from the people around you. And I think the world needs that truth today. Like, there's a lot of my problem has to be the world's problem, and my problem has to be addressed by everybody in the world the way that I want it to be. And I love the fact that in a classical dojo, nobody gives a shit about that. Like, it's like, no, like you put your uniform on, you stand in line, you comply, you do all this stuff that the other people do, and you all get the results. Like everybody gets the rewards and the results from the hard work. Um, and I think the world needs that because it is an easy time in the world. Like I can send you pictures on the phone. I don't have to draw them or paint them or mail them or put a stamp on anything or walk to the post office to send it. It all just happens instantaneously, but not martial arts. It doesn't happen instantaneously. You cannot learn it from the internet. You just cannot. You can't get the lessons. So that's where I take that. And I think it will still be here. Um, people are still coming into dojos. Maybe the reason they're coming in is not the same as it was. Like, but some come in for the same reason. They want to be a good fighter. Some come in it's a religious experience for them. Some come in, they want to get in better shape. But regardless of what your goal is, you're going to have to do the same amount of work for all of those endeavors. I want to be a fighter, or I want to get in better shape. You're going to be the same thing at the end of it anyway, right? Because you're going to have to do all the same stuff, no matter what your goal is. I often say it doesn't matter what type of meat you put into a meat grinder. They could be veal, it could be pork, it could be chicken. Once you start turning the wheel, it all comes out ground meat. That's how it comes out.
Like a showdown test at Legacy Sure.
That's right.
Hachi, yeah, what do you think about, putting aside the specific martial art for a minute, what do you think about the future of martial art? What's its role now? Is it changed? Should it change?
Yes, it should change because mankind is changing. They're becoming more intelligent. With that intelligence, sometimes the bad guy can be worse. The good guy needs to be better. So, a way that we can help mankind in itself is when we teach. When people send their children to us, they want us to tell them the truth. Some parents don't, but we tell them the truth anyway because uh, you need to be told that there's more to passing, and as opposed to say just sitting in your decks for a year and then you go on to grade 7 and sometimes to get to university and not even know enough to be there. You have to learn the value and effort and how to accomplish things. That's the only thing that's going to be help you into the future. And a sensei should have that sense of being a true teacher. And it's our duty to try to instill young people, older people, of any age, to do what's right, what's honest, and make an honest effort. You're just not going to accomplish much in your life. Life is tough, life is tough. So,
Isn't it funny
yeah.
how, we live in this world now where there's, it's gone from phones on a cord to cell phones and then the internet, and now AI is coming up and all this technology changes. But a lot of times when we talk about martial arts and think about the benefits, it's all the fundamentals, right? It's the hard work, it's the respect, it's being around like-minded people, it's learning from history. All those fundamentals are still so important. They're more important than ever. You'd think, humanity would get to this place where you don't need that anymore. But the truth is, you always do. Everybody has to go through that personal journey. And, I've said this before, I think martial arts is one of the best things a human being can do. And it's because of all those things. It's because of the hard work. It's because of the respect, right? It's because of what you're being around people. I love a couple of things you just said, Hachi. The bad guy can be worse, so the good guy needs to be better, right? You have to learn the value of effort. These things are so fundamental. We're sitting here in 5 years, we'll be able to have an entire life with artificial entities around us made by computers. And yet this core stuff, the sweat and the blood and the tears, is still critical.
That happened to me. That's why I I realized that it's true
Mm.
because I was on the wrong path there in my youth, and I was looking for something. And a friend of mine said, "You should go. There's a karate club down the street," and it just changed my direction. Well, I'll put it this way. I put it in a bit of a on the lighter side is before when I fought, they put you in jail. Now when I fight, they pay me. So
That's a step up for sure.
yeah, it was an easy route. It's
Yeah.
just
Randy, when Hachi and I were expounding a minute ago, you seemed to be pretty engaged in that. Did you have some thoughts arising out of that?
Just the thing that Sensei just said, the thing that popped into my mind was when Coach Kameho said, I was going to fight every single day, so I might as well win, right? I might as well win, right? But the thing, you train for the extreme, right? Like the bad guy is bad, so you need to be better. And you train for that extreme. And maybe that extreme never happens, but you get all the benefits of that every day and all the small battles that happen too, right? So, and the small battles are sometimes not punching somebody out, right? Sometimes the small battle is being the one who's just willing to be brave at work. You're at work and the boss says, we need somebody to do this and it sucks and it's not going to be good. And you're the bravest one to say, I'll do it. I'll do that thing and I'll get it done for you. The world needs more of that, I think. I think it had an abundance of it at a certain time. And I think it doesn't have an abundance of it anymore. World War II, those people in those wars were different. I mean, you're gonna be backing a boat up and they're gonna drop the back of that boat down and you're gonna like charge out into machine gun fire to defend your country and your loved ones back home. I'm not saying we're that, but we're some version of that. Like we are some version of that by being willing to step up and do things that, I mean, let's face it, how many times have any one of us gone to work or a place with a huge black eye or bruises all over us, and the people around you look at you and go, "Ugh, why would you do that to yourself? You're crazy. Why would you do that?" Well, I don't know. I guess we're just built different. And I think the world needs a little more of that. I'd like to see the world have a little more of that. At least our world. It probably exists in in Africa, some parts of the Eastern Bloc, like it probably is still very much there, but I'm surrounded by comfort.
I think the wrong type of person, the guy who's going, I'm going to take karate just to be a tough guy. They won't last. They won't want to invest all that time. And because if they do, by the time they've done their 10, 15 years, you will have changed them to a different path. So it's very seldom will you see a martial artist, a true martial artist, start a fight in the street or show off or try to hurt somebody or something like that. So, yes, so a way of redirecting or shunning people who have the wrong idea.
Yeah, somehow it goes out of them, right? If people come in with that idea, it doesn't, like you said, they either quit the martial arts because it's hard training, or it just goes out of them. They learn to put it in the right place in a tournament or competition or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're also the person I like to think that's most likely to step up for a weaker person and insert themselves into a situation where that other person can't handle it. When I look at the call, it's like I'm 100% certain that nobody would be smacking around a young person or a weaker person. And the people on this call, all of them that I'm looking at the names, they would not turn a blind eye to that and just go home and not do something about it. Whereas lots of people would turn a blind eye to that. They would just, this is not my business. I need to move on with my life. I'm in a hurry. Right. I have other things to do.
Now we in a way, I guess, are wearing sort of a superhero uniform underneath our regular clothes, just simply by training all the time. We don't actually do it, but mentally, part of the reason that we do that is to help mankind and as well as help yourself. You're part of mankind, so it's all the same purpose. I tell that to my children all the time. You know, when I talk to them and they start getting disinterested, I tell them, I said, how would you like to be a superhero like Batman or Superman, Spider-Man or something like that? And they all nod, you know, or they start listening. And I tell them, you know, you see that uniform you have on? You don't wear it under your clothes, but you still actually have that uniform on when you're at school. So you would never actually hurt one of your friends. You wouldn't see Superman or Spider-Man or one of those guys. You know, but you would help your friends. And I think they go away a bit excited that they can be a superhero with themselves. And that's sort of true.
Yeah, you know, the training gives you kind of the technical understanding of how to deal with physical conflict, but it also just it changes your perspective on it so much, right? It's not a thing that sends you into a panic. You can you can put yourself into physical conflict. You can intervene in most of it, and you know how it's going to go, right? Like it's just it's predictable and less scary after you've been doing martial arts 10, 15 years. Whether you know you can punch and kick better, but you also just your mind is better for it. It's easier to step in.
Speaking of superheroes, Sensei Copeland sent in a question.
I was just going to say, Sensei Copeland sent something in, right?
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of superheroes,
Yeah,
so I'm wondering if he's willing to come on the screen and since
Sensei.
I think he is.
yeah,
We'll find out.
who's
You're gonna get us kicked off with Japanese TV.
You guys are too funny.
Sensei.
How you doing, guys?
Good.
How you doing, bro?
I'm doing
Looking
good.
forward to
Here's
seeing
my
you
brother.
in a
Great to see
week.
you guys.
We're gonna see you in a week, live and in person.
Oh, 100%. Work me like a rented mule.
Oh, boy.
We're good to go.
You had a question, Sensei.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. My question was, have you noticed, or why is it that it seems like martial artists age better than non-martial artists? It's just something that I've been noticing, and it was just kind of weird because I've been to a few funerals this is what, February? Well, since January to now, and you always see people at a funeral that you don't see like any place else, and for a long time, it's like, oh my goodness, they all look older, and I know for a fact they're not martial artists, and all the martial artists that I know who are senior in age, they don't seem to age the same way. So I'm just kind of wondering, what do you attribute that to?
Who first, Sensei?
Oh, I want Sensei Legacy to go first, of course, because he's got the most experience.
Well, technically, or just because, you know, we're being healthy because we exercise. But I think technically it's because of your blood flow. Your blood flow is going through, it gets filtered and renewed and it comes back in. And I think that is true. It just, your body is kept cleaner. Um, and, you know, if you don't like to exercise, if you don't like to run, play basketball. Takes your mind off of the running, but you're running all the time. And that's basically what's happening. You're being kept clean by doing martial arts on a physical level. So that's why we live better. Like, as you said that, I just thought of all my buddies I used to hang around with, or like because of my age, not very many are still around.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Yes.
Sensei Sereno?
I mean, definitely the physical stuff. I follow this doctor on social media, and he published something today, and he said, if you can, something like this, if you can sprint on demand, if you can get on a ledge and pull yourself up, and if you can squat your own body weight, you're aging at half the rate of the people that can't do those things. And I don't know how statistically accurate that is, but I think the point is a good one, right? You have to, if you're strong and you maintain it and you continue to exercise, because there's so many people, at least half of our of North America doesn't do that stuff. You can see them age. But I also think there's something else, and that is that we have a structure for our lives, right? We have an organization, we have people around us in our dojos, we have a positive mindset to work through challenges and conflict. Yeah, so I just think there's physical and mental benefits to this stuff, and if you consider your society and the people around you spiritual, I think our spiritual lives are in order. There's a ton of good stuff about it.
Vincent Dauphin?
I think we purposely stress ourselves out in the dojo a lot, and overcoming that stress. One thing is then the stresses of daily life aren't quite as challenging for you. So you're not getting beat down by those things quite as much. I do think the fact that we use our body as the main tool for like our physical body, not necessarily lifting a weight or running a marathon or paddling a boat. Like we use what we are, which I think is a very sustainable way to continue to exercise. I also think that, if we're not mindful about what we're doing, it degenerates really quickly. We all know those instructors who are not mindful about their training. And they stand at the front of the room under the showman, and their belt's gotten a lot smaller than it was. It shrunk in the wash or something. I don't know.
Exactly.
But the other thing I think I would take it one step further, since Copeland, because I think most of the people that I see that don't age actually teach martial arts too. They're actually like even less aged than people who just do it. And I tell my guys all the time that I'm an energy vampire. When you come in the dojo and you're young and excited, I love it. Like that rubs off on me. That makes me feel young and excited. And I'm looking at them and I can remember when I was that age, and I still feel like I'm that age until I get up first thing in the morning. But then it's all good after that. But Setsupino says we're not normal. Like we're not normal people. You're not either, Setsu Copeland. I've known you since I was like 13, and you look the same now as you did back then. So I don't know. There's probably very scientific things that would explain it, but I think that's some of it. I think some of it is what we've all talked about. If we turn the question around on you, Sensei, what do you think? And before you go, one thing I guess I would say too is a lot of people, their best days was some time when I was in high school and I played football. Those are the best days of my life. All of us, the best days of our life is now. Like we're all still very much like, no, it's just getting better and better. Today is better than yesterday, and we're all still living that way. But what do you think, Sensei Copeland?
Well, when you ask the question, you're not really thinking about all the different perspective that you're going to get from the panel. But the fact that we have to put in at least 30 years to be considered relevant, in that 30-year period, there's a lot of things happening that the normal people are not doing in a constructive, systematic way. And like Legacy Sensei said, we're constantly, generating blood flow, regenerating the system, keeping things going. I never thought of an answer, but I just thought like it's kind of strange, why that seems to be like that. But I think it's the fact that we're committed and we're doing it on a regular basis. It's a routine for us that we don't even think about doing. We get up in the morning, we do what you have to do. teaching is like breathing air. Doing the martial arts is like breathing air. We don't think about it. It doesn't create stress for us. So it's not, you know, there's good stress and bad stress. Bad stress is like a cancer. It eats you away, right? And for us, martial arts is a good stress that gives us all the positive benefits just because we want to do, we just go doing it. You don't think about breathing in the morning. You just breathe. And that's what martial arts, I think, that's why I think martial arts help us, you know, from a physical perspective, not, you know, not to say about mental, but for sure. That's why we stay young. Like Legacy Sensei, I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that his mustache was white, you would have no idea what age he was. I mean, I see him punching and kicking still. His hands look like they would still hurt you if they hit you. So you cannot say that as you get older, you get less. You definitely get smarter, but you're still capable of doing all kinds of crazy things.
Part of the, if you don't mind me adding a little bit to what I said, your body still has stem cells in it. And if they're not overcome by body fats and stuff like that, and you get rid of all that stuff and you have a good diet and your blood's carrying all that to your body, it also starts to fix up the things that are going bad, you know, just like Sensei Suino was delving into that a little bit there. So that's part of the reason. A lot of times you've got bad stuff in your blood and it's bringing it everywhere, or there's not enough room for like the stem cells to go and to correct and to fix the bad or sore spots in your body. That helps make your life shorter.
Yeah, I think I think if you're doing good martial arts, it's a healthy way of life. You know,
Yes.
and that's all there is to it.
Yeah. Also, I can guarantee you, Sensei Copeland, if I came walking into your dojo next week and I was 60 pounds heavier than I am right now, you'd be pulling me aside and asking me some questions.
I would definitely have a chat with you. There is absolutely no doubt. I'm like, dude, we need to talk.
All right.
For sure. Absolutely. But thank you
So
for taking my question. Sorry.
yeah, no, I don't want you to go away, Sensei Copeland,
Oh,
because a question that came in, and it came in from Dreedy, and
okay.
she can't come on screen, but I think it would be good for you to answer this question along with all of us. So I'll answer it on her behalf, and I'll direct it around a bit. And then if you three haven't taken up all the great answers, then maybe I'll chip in at the end. So Dreedy says, when did you feel like you started to really enjoy teaching martial arts? And what are the biggest lessons you've learned from being an instructor? So again, when did you feel like you started to really enjoy teaching martial arts? And what are the biggest lessons you've learned from being an instructor? And Sensei Suino, I'm going to go to you first this time.
All right. I got a couple simple answers. I enjoyed teaching the first moment I started doing it. I'm not saying I was good at it. Always loved it though. I just love sharing it. I do that with everything. I like learning something, sharing it, recording what I learned, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. I just day one, it was something I loved. What is something I learned from teaching? I'm going to say humility, and I don't mean that in like this shameful way where I feel guilty about myself, but humility in the sense that there's so much growth to do. It's unlimited. The amount of growth you can do is unlimited. The way Hanshi says, you know, when you're standing on the mat, that part under your feet is what you know, and everything else is what you don't know yet. I just keep getting that lesson taught to me every day, and I try to share it with my students. The cool thing about that is you're never bored. If you have that mindset, you're like, there's always so much more to learn, right? Which means tomorrow's another adventure. And if I can share that enthusiasm with my students, kindle that joy, that excitement in them, that's really powerful. So that's what I got for you.
How about you, Sensei Copeland? What do you think about that question? When did you really start liking teaching martial arts? And what are some great lessons you've learned from being a teacher?
I think when I was a brown belt, I distinctly remember helping in the class. But when I received my black belt, I think that kind of changed everything. It's like this is fun because now, you kind of consider yourself as an instructor because you have a black belt. And my thing was always, if I can do it good, I would like to teach somebody else how to do it good. To me, that was kind of the fun stuff. Teaching somebody else how to do it as good as I was doing it, or as good as I thought they should do it. One of the big lessons that I've learned from teaching, and I learned this early, is that I used to teach based on how I was doing things. And I learned that I have to teach from the perspective that they have no clue how to do things. And then once I flipped it around, teaching was a lot easier because, it's kind of like you dumb it down and then you can all move together at the same time and to the next level. It's a valuable lesson that I learned that, I can teach anybody anything regardless of where they are.
Love that answer. Sensei Legacy, where do you want to take this? When did you like teaching, love teaching, and what lessons have you learned from being a teacher?
Well, again, like Sensei Sueno, I've always liked it. The day I put my foot in to the dojo floor, I was, I couldn't turn away. So the thing is, the way that we do is we learn something, then we try to improve it, and then it's a matter of retaining it after a while, right? So the more you know about something, the more you can control it or understand it. So teaching seemed to me the best way of when somebody asks me a question and I don't know that answer, um, that's part of my growth. I'm going to go and find out what it is. So, and then by saying it every day, it becomes more part of you, and more it's a part of you, the more questions you have, and the more you seek those answers. It's a big endless circle. Yes.
Love it.
Yeah.
So I won't add a lot. When I started teaching, it was mostly because I was just so enamored with Sensei Legacy. Like I just idolized him. I wanted to do everything like him, like everything. So he taught karate. So in my mind, I was like, I have to teach karate. Like Sensei Legacy teaches karate. I'll never be as good a martial artist unless I teach karate too. And actually, even though I didn't understand that statement, it was actually true. Like it was actually true what I was feeling inside. So like yourself, Sensei Copeland, when I started teaching, it was like not really. I wanted everybody to be like, you got to be like me. If you're gonna do this, you got to punch like this. No, you got to fight all these rounds. You got to be willing to bleed. You got to be, and no, like after a while, I got better at it. No, why are you here, young man? Like, young lady, why did you come to the dojo? And when the mom says, oh, she came, no, mom, I want to hear what your daughter, why did she come to karate? So I learned to listen to the students a little more, and have better questions for them. Right. So that's one thing. I learned to have better questions for them. Dridi, specifically, one thing I know that I learned is that I thought I knew a lot about myself when I thought I had it like myself figured out. But I didn't. Like my teacher always could see things in me that I couldn't see in myself. And then as a result of that, I think in the dojo is the place that I really learned to trust. As a teacher, I learned to trust more than any other place. Trust the process, trust the people around you, trust your instructor, trust the students. Don't try and control things quite so much and trust things a lot more. and just follow the pattern that's been laid out, and then the results come. And not everybody gets the results in the same time, right? Like everybody gets the results in time, but not all in the same time. So that's where I take it.
Do that.
Love it.
Mr. Copeland, can't wait to see you.
Well, you're gonna have to wait, because if you're in too much of a hurry and excitement, it's gonna overflow, come out in all the wrong places, and then we just lose ourselves.
But we will see you at the tournament. It will be great.
We 100%. I'm looking forward to it. My guys are ready. We're coming down. We're gonna have a good time for sure.
Yeah, you got to come and get all the trophies like we did at yours. We're coming to yours to get all the trophies again.
I was
So
thinking about competing actually.
Oh,
I want to
that
ref
would be
that one.
good. But you shouldn't say that on the show, because a bunch of competitors just dropped off now. They're like, I'm not.
Oh, actually, I'm not. I was just kidding. I'm not competing. It's gonna be a great time, and I'm looking forward to it. You guys always put on a good show, and it's gonna be fun like always. Much more a challenge. Make sure you're there. If you're not there, I don't want to talk to you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm out.
Thank
I'm
you,
out.
Seth. The next question we had come in, it's a good segue, and it comes from Big Cam from
Cam.
the Kitchener Dojo. And so if we could get him on the screen, he said he'd come on the screen. Probably. And while we're getting him on the screen, Cam and Andrew actually do first aid for us they're both emergency room nurses, and they help us out with the first aid. They do a great job, and we're always grateful to them for that. How you doing, Cam? Are you working?
Yeah, I'm at work right now, Sensei.
I was going to admonish you for not coming to class, but if you're helping other people, that's okay.
I know. I was in Sensei Watson's class this morning, so I didn't miss karate today. So
Awesome.
yeah. So my question was, it was a very good transition, was with the Matsumura challenge coming up like a week away pretty much, what are your favorite aspects of competition or tournaments, and like training for tournaments and competition?
And who do you want to go to first?
Let's start with you, Sensei Dauphin.
I didn't compete for a long time, and then I started competing again in BJJ. And one of the things that I wasn't really super conscious of before, but that I am now, is that when you decide you're going to compete, it really does change your mind. Like once you say like, okay, on this date, I'm going to go compete. I don't know who's going to be there. I don't know who I'm doing kata against. I don't know who I'm going to fight. It puts you in this steady state of just kind of a little bit of anxiety and unease. And the thing that I like about that with a person like me, it might not be the same for everybody, is it focuses my training and it heightens my attention and really makes me like, just dig into what it is. Because Setsuna and I were talking about this morning. I never ever wanted to stand across from somebody and think they did more work than me. I'm going to get beat by somebody who's not as good as me, but they just worked harder than me. I didn't mind if I lost to somebody who was just clearly a better martial artist than me.
Me too.
But the one thing I will say, Kim, that I really value now on the other side of competing is you're going to go to the tournament, and a lot of the people that you're going to see there that are refereeing, or like from my era, like Clarence Borgia, Pete Daypuck, we're like really good friends now. And that friendship was forged in competition, in combat, and fighting each other. And that's one of those things that I really value about my competitive days. Those friends that I built through that from other countries and other places. I could go to Texas right now and knock on Ty Yoakum's door, having not seen him for the last 5 years. He'd kick the door open, feed me, give me a bed to sleep in. Like, that all came through martial arts competition.
Hi. Hanshi, how about you next?
Well, basically, I would have to say to you that um, personally, okay, I'll put it another way. If you're not ready now, it's too late. You look at it a little bit like a street altercation. You know, you go out there, you don't get ready for that. You train as a martial artist, and that's who and that's what you are. The only thing I would suggest is that, you tune yourself up maybe a little bit and clear your mind.
Right.
Clear, uh, that's what you want to be. Fighting is no mindedness. You're standing there when something happens, you react. If you're thinking about the guy's throwing a kick, your mind is full, right? So you have to get rid of that so you can react. Or if you're looking for a kick and the guy punches, you want to be a bit like a mirror. A mirror just sees the movement and then you react to that. That's what I did. I never changed anything. I train hard all the time.
Hi. And last but certainly not least, Sensei Suino.
Hey, Cam.
Hey, Sensei.
Uh, I love the fact that once you step into the ring, once the competition starts, that's what you got. Like there's nothing else for that time, whatever it is, for that number of rounds or whatever. That's all you're thinking about. And if you can get in that mindset and just do it, it's actually incredibly peaceful. I know that sounds crazy, but you've just agreed with yourself to put aside everything else, right? The stress of work, worrying about the future, what other people think. And you're just going, I'm in this ring with somebody, I'm on this mat with somebody, and all we're thinking about is this match. And for me, that's always been a place of refuge. Same thing, not quite to the same degree, but the same thing in a hard training session at the dojo, but it's amplified. I love the preparation. I love what Hanshi said. I try to, be in pretty good shape all the time, but I like the fact that it focuses you, that in a week, 2 weeks, 3 months, you're going to have this moment. But my favorite time is when, once you set foot on there, for me, the anxiety goes away and I'm just here and the consequences are what they are, right? It reminds me a little when I used to practice law, I hated preparing for court. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. But once I was in court, it was all good. This is it. I'm just doing this thing now. You know what I mean? So I don't know, that may sound crazy to people that don't fight or don't compete, but in that time, it is what it is. Here's the 4 walls. It's all that matters. It's strangely peaceful.
Hi.
You've competed one time, Cam, and you're coming to compete again at the Matsumura Challenge. Answer your own question. You're not a seasoned competitor, but you also competed in powerlifting a lot. So
Yeah, very new to martial arts competitions, but powerlifting, I would do 2-3 competitions a year. And certainly I agree with what Suino Sensei said about, and what you said as well, Sensei Dolphin, if as soon as I've committed to the competition, my mindset completely changed into, okay, I need to focus. I'm focusing on, all right, this is what I want to lift at that competition. These are the numbers and the weeks and how I have to get there. And even in martial arts now, like as soon as I commit, when you came up to me in the dojo and you were like, Cam, are you going to compete at the Matsumura Challenge? I was like, yes, Sensei, I'm going to compete. As soon as I made that commitment, my training in the dojo and at home completely changed. I was super focused, and my katas even like my katas changed. Like I started being tighter on my katas and in class and stuff like that too, and even at home. So it's made me super focused. I'm very excited. I am quite anxious, but I was like that in powerlifting too, and it's exactly what Suino Sensei said. Of once I get onto the mat, or when I was powerlifting, when I got onto the platform, that anxiety completely dissolved, and it was just, okay, this is the lift, this is the fight, this is the kata, right? So it's very much like a flow state that you enter, in my mind.
love it. Cam,
Yeah.
thank you for ending the show with us.
Thank you, Sensei.
Yeah, no problem. But sadly, as Sean Benson says, time is real. And the show must end now. It's 10:01. But before we leave, just do a quick around the horn. Since Legacy, what do you think about tonight's show? Any thoughts from it or anything you want to share?
Well, it was we had a good talk. Some nice stuff came up. I'm hoping with this show, if some of the Udancha, other schools and everything realize that we have a duty to keep martial arts going or to push it forward into some sort of modern day state, that we should get busy at it. And as a group, we should get together and not let our time be the time where karate collapsed or martial arts collapsed.
Thanks, Sensei.
Okay.
What do you want to go out on tonight?
Well, I love these host chats. I miss our boy Sean, but he's out there doing great things. We'll see him again. This was very thought-provoking night. I thought there were a lot of really cool things that were said. And I'm really thinking a lot now, and will continue to think about the evolution of the martial arts, our place in it, and from a technical point of view, what's out there, right? What's next? If there's karate and there's white crane, right? If there's basic judo and Mifune judo, what's next? I'm going to be really thinking about that. Not just philosophically, but to the extent that I can get good enough to explore that, figure it out for myself. That's fascinating. So I'm excited about the next 5 years of my training.
I liked tonight's show. I learned a lot. I always learn a lot on the shows. I always get brain worms that just stick in my head, and then I'm thinking about them over and over again. I'm happy that that happens to me. I think this could be a record for a host chat of the most people we've had turn their camera on. So and send questions in. So that was really nice that people were engaged, and I hope more people continue to do that. As we go out, I want to mention that we won't be here next week because we're taking the night off for it's too close to the Matsumora Challenge, so we won't be doing a show, but we will be dropping a short for people. So there'll be something there for you to see on Thursday night. And when we get to February 22nd, James Pankowitz is coming on. And if you don't know who he is the person who, I think it was the dojo bar in Okinawa. He was the owner of the dojo bar. So he's had interactions with so many people that have gone to Okinawa to train, as well as all the Okinawan masters who live there. And I think it's going to be a really good conversation. And as we go out, I want to say thanks to you, Sensei Suino, and you, Sensei Legacy. And also a big thanks to the people who help us with the show, those being Robert Schlumsky, Andrei Sedishev, Alden Adair, Sidney Dauphin, Justin Shea, Mike Russell, Josh Kitchens, Daniel Holland, Jesse Vite Villo, Christiana Landolt, and Emily Ruth Driscoll. Thank you all so much for helping us with the show. If they all do an hour a day, then that means that every day, like 15 hours is being put in to bring this show. And we don't pay them much, and we don't get paid much. So we really got to thank them, and thank all of you for logging in. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.